At 1 o'clock Eastern today, Valve finally unveiled a new Half-Life project, something that has been a very long time in the works. And unfortunately, Steam can still not count to 3 as Half-Life Alyx was announced. Now, you may remember Alyx Vance from Half-Life 2. She was prominently displayed with her father and her partner, the dog, the big robotic dog that helped you out a ton in the game. And it ended on a cliffhanger, and we still don't know what's going to happen. Now, there's been some leaks in the past talking about, writers have come forward and said, this is what we wanted to do. That's really rumor and speculation. All we know for sure is that Steam has decided to grace us with another entry in the Half-Life universe. And all I could say is, finally, it's about time. Unfortunately, it is a VR title, but we'll get into the negatives in a minute. Let's focus on some positives here. This is an industry pioneer franchise. Think of what Half-Life and Half-Life 2 have done for the PC gaming genre, for Steam, for all of the effects and lighting and character models and sound design and everything that went into those games. Those games were, and in my opinion still are, gold standards when it comes to first-person shooters. The original Half-Life had a fully realized 3D universe. Now, that in of itself isn't anything original. We had already seen that in development from the guys over at id with Wolfenstein and with Doom. But it really wasn't until Half-Life did we get a fleshed out, really good story, full voice acting across the board, tons of weapons and secret areas and this mysterious G-Man and multiple levels to explore. Not really entirely sure who the good guys, the bad guys, and this evil Black Mesa corporation. They really did a lot for the first-person shooter genre. Recall that the early days of Team Fortress, although primarily functioning around the Quake model, ultimately began to shift. This led to things like Counter-Strike and Day of Defeat, just to name a few. Then Half-Life 2 came along, totally reimagined this model. We now had physics-based gameplay. As a matter of fact, physics played a significant part of the game. You remember you got that awesome gravity gun where you could stack up boxes and create new platforms. You could use the terrain to hurt and kill enemies, find new areas to explore. It really took physics-based gaming to the next level. And now here we are with Half-Life Alyx. And if you guys didn't get a chance to watch that little trailer that they leaked today, do yourself a favor and go watch it. It is 2 minutes of the most intense virtual reality gameplay I have ever seen. I work in this industry. I can tell you I have never seen anything like that. The level of fidelity seen in knocking things off of a bookshelf to pick up a single cartridge and load it into a gun. The way that your hands, where you could lean on walls and peek around. I don't know how much of that was scripted. I don't know how much of that will actually happen in game. VR has always been one of those weird genres where it's hard to demonstrate exactly what you're going to see and feel as an end user. But what I saw was mind-blowing, leagues ahead of what I currently play on my PlayStation VR upstairs. So I'm very, very excited. Clearly, Half-Life has this pedigree of releasing amazing technical demonstration after technical demonstration, still portraying a phenomenal, very enjoyable, highly replayable experience. I'm curious to see if they have once again cracked that code and can now get people interested in VR. Lastly, this is really an icebreaker for the future. We've finally broken the stigma that Half-Life games never come out anymore. Hopefully this brings the conversation into, hey, now that we are starting in on this journey once again, what else can we do to the genre? what else can we bring to this franchise? And hopefully this is the beginning of the end in terms of that Half-Life drought. Now, there are some negatives with this approach though, and it first and foremost is that it's a prequel. It's going to take place between Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2. It was pretty clear to most of us watching the trailer when Dr. Eli Vance, Alyx's father, was prominently displayed. We know what happens to him at the end of episode 2. So why was he around? Well, now we know why. It was a prequel. So you may get some drips and drabs of some other piece of story. G-Man was displayed at the end of the trailer as well, so I know he's going to be in there causing some sort of shenanigans. However, it doesn't push the genre, it doesn't push the story forward anymore, and that's frustrating. This also is a very expensive investment. I can promise you those graphics you saw are going to cost you a lot of money, and I am sitting next to a very expensive PC with an M.2 and a pretty beefy i7 and a 2080 Ti. Makes me wonder if my computer could run VR in that level of fidelity that we saw, and I don't entirely know if that's true. That was a very graphically intensive virtual reality simulation that they were showing. I draw back to my time with PlayStation VR when I play upstairs, and I can tell you guys that the pop-in rate is very, very high. You have a very short field of view. Everything's got this kind of fog. Games are designed intentionally to be very corridor-based for that exact reason. You get a lot of jitter and wiggle in movement. Things up close are very pixelated. They sometimes have a rainbow effect. Now, that could be because I wear glasses, although I did do a video talking about how VR does work if you have glasses. That doesn't mean that I don't have a negative experience with it, maybe in a way other people don't. But if you want to look and feel that game, you're going to fork out mega bucks to not only get a beefy enough computer to process it, but then you're going to have to shell out some serious coin to get the right VR headset to make it look phenomenal. And lastly, the big negative, I think, with this approach, going in an all VR environment, is this is going to be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to port over to a non-VR game. I would like to see more of Half-Life. I would like to see what Alyx has been up to in a prequel. I would like to see more of Half-Life in general outside of this game. However, I don't necessarily see this game being ported over anytime soon to a PC or a console experience due to the nature of how immersive VR is and how clearly the guys at Valve have spent a significant amount of time modeling all those little physics-based models, particularly when you're reaching your hands and knocking over things and opening lids and that sort of thing. That would not translate very well or at all to a console-based game other than just, press a button to open a jar instead of actually like doing this, for example. So that's why I feel like this will only remain in virtual reality. But it's exciting to talk about Half-Life again outside of rumors and speculations, and I'm happy that at least a franchise that has really defined my time as a gamer, one of the games that I have played the most, definitely Half-Life and Half-Life 2, are at least in the discussion again for the forefront. So we'll have to wait and see how this experiment works out for Valve. I'll be curious to see if enough people jump back into the VR universe, or if people are like, hey, that's cool, but I want the real thing coming out soon. That remains to be seen. But what we do know for now is that Half-Life is absolutely not dead, and unfortunately, as I mentioned before, Valve cannot count to the number 3. Now, I didn't wear this shirt specifically for that. I just happened to notice it. So with that, I'd like to close out this video. Leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on Half-Life going virtual reality. What gimmicks or tricks are you excited for to see in that virtual reality space? And most importantly, does this drive you to get a virtual reality computer and headset for your PC so you can experience this game in its entirety? Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.